With each new Mortal Kombat, fans saw the evolution of a timeless franchise. Or I could say Katana Cabal, the evolution. Because fans saw. I started with Mortal Kombat on the Super NES when I was 5 years old, and I've been in love with it ever since. Every time a new console came out, I was waiting for the new Mortal Kombat for the current gen. I was just super excited, couldn't wait. Well, ladies and gentle ducks, I am Question Young Wayne, and today we'll be going through each mainline Mortal Kombat and talking a little bit about each one. So have fun as I take you down this nostalgic trip and I serve up this Mortal Kombat video you never knew you needed.
Choose your destiny. Sub-Zero.
1992, when the original Mortal Kombat was released to the arcade. The game only had a small team of 4 people: Ed Boon, Dan Forden, John Tobias, and John Vogel. In 1993, the home ports were released to Sega Genesis, Super NES, Game Boy, and Game Gear. The blood was actually censored from the home port, changing the color to make it appear as sweat. The only way to unlock the blood in the Super NES version was to have a Game Genie, as Nintendo did not want this violence in their systems at all. The Sega Genesis port, on the other hand, could be reverted to the original blood color by typing in the code ABACABB, which was a nod to the album Abacab by the band Genesis. 1993. In November of 1993, Mortal Kombat 2 was released to the arcades, and now with more characters, more moves, more stages, and fatalities, bloodthirsty fans could not help but be pumped. On September 13th, 1994, the home ports were released of Mortal Kombat 2. This was again to Super NES, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear. In this game, Jade and Smoke were the secret fights. To fight Jade, you had to play on one-player mode, and the match before the question mark, you had to win the fight using only low kicks and the D-pad. If done correctly, you would be transported to Goro's lair and you would fight Jade. In order to fight Smoke, you could be either in 1 or 2-player mode. On the portal stage, when you see Dan Forden say, you have to press down and start at the same time. You would then be transported again to Goro's lair and you would fight Smoke. As a kid, I was never able to do this. Every time I would press the button, I would just be that much short.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
1995. On April 15th, 1995, we were introduced to yet more characters in a different aesthetic with Mortal Kombat 3. And it also saw the introduction of a combo system, a succession of moves that cannot be interrupted if the opposing player is hit. They also added a run button as well. Notably missing were Scorpion, Raiden, Baraka, and Johnny Cage. Also released that year were the home ports on September 8th, 1995. Notice how close that time span is to when the arcade games were released. This infuriated arcade owners as it would drive business away from their arcades. This directly led to Midway creating Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 as a way to entice people to come play at the arcades. So on October 6th, less than 1 month from the release of Mortal Kombat 3 to home consoles, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was released to the arcades, which now included Scorpion, Reptile, and Mileena. Now in mid to late 1996, the home ports were released in North America for the Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. This is also for Super NES, Sega Genesis, the Game Gear, and the Game Boy. And notably, the home port is when they first introduced the Brutality, my favorite finisher of all time.
Jade wins. Brutality.
1996. In 1996, Mortal Kombat Trilogy was released, which was a culmination of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. It was to include all the characters and most of the stages. This was directly released to the Sony PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and the Nintendo 64. The N64 and PlayStation versions of this game were not created equally. Loading times on the PlayStation were unbelievably long, while the N64 version had to cut out sprites and even certain characters in order to fit on the cartridge, as you can see from these character select screens. The PlayStation version had boss characters and the classic versions of certain characters as well. This also led to a lot of moves in the Nintendo 64 version having different frame data than its counterpart, and oftentimes leading to a choppy experience. However, a drawback on PlayStation was with Shang Tsung, having the option to limit his morphs in order to cut down on load time. If you put the mode on limited morphs, you were able to select 2 characters that you could morph into, and this would cut out the load time. However, if you didn't put the option on limited, then it would look like this every time you tried to morph. Now, even though this is my favorite Mortal Kombat game to date, I will say that that's pretty bad. It also is worth noting that on my first try, I was able to execute this brutality.
Finish him. Wins. Brutality.
I'm gonna open up a 24/7 boba shop, all right?
1997. Mortal Kombat 4 was released on October 15th, 1997 to the arcade. It was also the first Mortal Kombat to exclusively use 3D generated graphics. It also introduced a weapon system and continued to add to the gore and violence. In 1998, it was ported to the PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and Game Boy Color in 1999. An upgraded version of Mortal Kombat Gold was also released for the Sega Dreamcast on October 31st, 1999. This included Cyrax, Mileena, Kitana, Kung Lao, and Baraka, as well as the base roster, and they also had Sector as a hidden character. There were actually two teams assembled at Midway to work on two parallel Mortal Kombat titles during this time. Ed Boon led a team creating the next major installment to the series, Mortal Kombat 4, while John Tobias led another team to create Mortal Kombat's first action-adventure style game that would explore characters' background. This title would eventually become Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, and it was released in October 1997 for the Sony PlayStation and December 1997 for the Nintendo 64. But due to storage limitations on the cartridge, the live action sequences were replaced with mostly static images. Also, this was the last time we would see Mortal Kombat ever use digitized graphics, seeing the return of many familiar faces. Notably, Richard DeVizio, the actor who played Quan Chi, was the same actor who played Kano, Cabal, and Baraka in previous titles. The end of Mortal Kombat Mythologies introduces us to a familiar character, that being Shang Tsung, which directly leads us into the events of the first Mortal Kombat game. Now, the graphics of this game were seen at the time to be outdated, especially in a day and age where 3D was all the rave. The controls were also heavily criticized as they were seemingly unfit for an action-adventure game with platforming elements. In spite of all of this, the game would go to sell over 1 million copies worldwide and become a commercial success. Nowadays, Mortal Kombat Mythologies holds a very special place in most Mortal Kombat fans' hearts. How do you guys feel about Mortal Kombat Mythologies? 2002. In 2002, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, the 5th installment to the franchise, was released for PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and the Game Boy Advance. This was the first Mortal Kombat to skip the arcades and go straight to the home consoles. It was also the dawn of a new 3D era, or as others would call it, the dark ages of Mortal Kombat. Each character now had different stances or fighting styles, which would give them different moves accordingly, one of which being a weapon stance, which each character had. Test Your Might, which was introduced in the original Mortal Kombat as the franchise's first minigame, made a return in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Just as in the original, the player is challenged to karate chop or otherwise destroy various objects made of progressively stronger material. The player must press any of the face buttons repeatedly to build up their strength meter. Once the green bar reaches the threshold, the player must press one of the triggers or the block button in order to attempt to break the object. If the green bar is not high enough, the object won't break. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, Deadly Alliance also saw the introduction of a new minigame called Test Your Sight. This game is very similar to the Shell game, where one object, in this case the Mortal Kombat symbol, is put under 3 identical containers. The containers are then swiftly shuffled in front of the player, giving you the task of deciding which one of the containers holds the symbol. Also, pretty straightforward. Now, it's also worth mentioning, Test Your Might did not make another return until 2011 with Mortal Kombat, otherwise called Mortal Kombat 9. 2004. Midway doubled down on their intent to go 3D with the release of Mortal Kombat Deception in October 2004. This was our first time getting our hands on an open world like conquest mode. It was also the introduction to the minigames Puzzle and Chess Combat. Chess Combat was one of my favorite minigames of all time. I love chess and I love Mortal Kombat. Chess, Mortal Kombat, what more could you ask for? Puzzle Combat was the reason for so many fond memories in my childhood. Puzzle Combat, for those of you that don't know, was a mini-game in Mortal Kombat Deception, which was the 6th installment to the mainline Mortal Kombat series. For some reason, me and my brothers really gravitated to this game mode, and we had long, hard-fought battles many a night. It was Need for Speed Carbon, Madden, and Mortal Kombat. That was our games. That's what we did. Now, the object of this game was very similar to a Bust a Move or a Tetris, but of course with a Mortal Kombat twist. The goal is to make clusters of certain colors with the blocks that you get. You are then able to remove the clusters with the same color breaker, which is the circle Mortal Kombat symbol. Now, you can also get a bomb, which will destroy all the same color blocks of whichever color block that it lands on. So if it lands on a red block, it's going to destroy all the red blocks, whether the red blocks are touching or not. As you destroy clusters and rack up points, your fighter will perform various combos on your opponent. Now, the more time that goes on, the faster that the blocks fall. Also, it's worth noting the higher difficulties have higher drop speed as well. Now, if your blocks stack past that top line, then you lose, of course. And it wouldn't be Mortal Kombat without a fatality at the end when you defeat your opponent. Now, something interesting that I literally never knew as a kid, I just found this out today. I'm today years old. Each fighter has a unique ability that they're able to do after you fill the super meter. You fill the super meter by destroying the clusters. Once the super meter is filled, you press either square or X and you will perform your character's special ability. Scorpion has Jumble, which takes all of your opponent's perfectly aligned blocks and jumbles them up. Baraka has Edger. Baraka's blade arms come out and destroy the two edges of your screen. All the blocks that were there are destroyed. Nightwolf has Breaker Buster, which destroys all of the opponent's breakers. Ermac has Levitate, which levitates blocks off the top of your stack. Sindel has Arrange, which, as the name implies, it arranges all of your blocks. Sub-Zero has Freeze, which freezes the enemy blocks for about 5 turns. The opponent is not able to see their colors. Raicho has Collapse, which collapses most of the blocks out of sight. Kenshi has Invisible, which makes the enemy blocks invisible for 5 turns. Raiden has Storm, which adds extra blocks to your enemy's field. Jade has Stack, which is similar to Raiden's Storm, however it leaves the enemy's top blocks untouched. Melina has Drill, which makes a large drill appear and drills the 2 middle columns of blocks away. And lastly, Cabal has Double Bomb, which of course gives you 2 bombs. 2006. In October of 2006, Midway took on their most ambitious project yet with Mortal Kombat Armageddon. This was the 7th installment, and it was to include every single Mortal Kombat character ever introduced, as well as added the classic game mode, Mortal Kombat. Creative Fighter also made its first appearance in this entry as well as the ability to execute aerial combos. This was also the first and hopefully last time that we saw the creative fatality system. If you play Mortal Kombat Armageddon, then chances are you remember the minigame Mortal Kombat. This was a Mario Kart style racing game where you could pick your favorite fighter to be your favorite racer while taking in the sights of the various realms. You could pick from Baraka, Raicho, Johnny Cage, Cyrax, Jax, Katana, Melina, Raiden, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero. Each character had their own special move that they could perform after collecting one of the gold stars that were scattered about the level. Baraka, Johnny Cage, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero all had projectile style special moves. While Katana had a shield, Raiden had an electric field that would electrocute enemies within range, and then there's Cyrax, who has the ability to set off rear bombs, and then of course Raicho, who also has a rear attacking projectile, but can you guess what it is? He throws up. He just vomits. But the levels are nice. NetherRealm being my favorite. I love to get an in-depth 3D view of these stages that we normally can only see very limited because we're actually fighting on the stage. Everyone controls a little bit different, with Baraka probably having the most loose controls and a character like Jax or Johnny Cage having like the tightest controls. You're able to really maneuver around those corners very easily. There are no drift mechanics. Sorry for my drifters, my Tokyo Drift guys. However, there is a bump button, a bump mechanic, if you will. So if your opponent comes next to you, you are able to bump them, which I believe slows them down. I was never able to actually bump anybody. But yes, I would love to see those mini games come back, maybe in Mortal Kombat 1. What was your favorite Mortal Kombat minigame? 2008. Mortal Kombat vs. DC was released in November 2008 for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. This was probably my least favorite of all the entries, and is barely even a part of the mainline Mortal Kombat releases in my eyes, but this would be the last Mortal Kombat that Midway would release, as all subsequent entries were released by NetherRealm Studios. 2011. On April 19th, 2011, NetherRealm Studios released the 9th installment to the Mortal Kombat franchise. Although it was released as just Mortal Kombat, the Mortal Kombat community often refers to it as just Mortal Kombat 9. This is arguably the best release to date, as people love the roster, the ability for creativity with combos, and its return to its roots, with Mortal Kombat 9 returning to the 2D fighting system. 2015. On April 14th, 2015, Mortal Kombat X was released for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Mortal Kombat X saw a darker tone with more mute colors. However, the combo potential was still very high as all characters had multiple combo extenders. Mortal Kombat X also introduced a new brutality system whereby when certain requirements are met, a player's final blow would act as a finishing move. 2019. Mortal Kombat 11 was released on April 23rd, 2019. This was for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PC, and the Nintendo Switch. The graphics for this game were significantly increased as the photorealism was undeniable. A new system called Crushing Blows was added, which added in-game animations during the fight when certain requirements are met. X-rays were also replaced with fatal blows, and the combo breaker was replaced with a breakaway system. 2023. And this brings us to the present day, the 12th mainline installment. What is known is that combo breakers have returned, as well as fatal blows. Aerial combat also makes a return after lying dormant since 2006. The game is set to release on the Xbox S and X series, PS5, the Nintendo Switch, and PC on September 19th, 2023. Mortal Kombat 11 thus far had been their highest selling game, selling over 15 million units worldwide. We can only imagine that Mortal Kombat will do just as good, if not maybe a little better. All right, guys, that is all I got for you today. Please do let me know in the comments if you have any obscure Mortal Kombat facts or something weird or something crazy that's happened to you while playing Mortal Kombat. Also, sorry for the long hiatus. I had a catastrophic audio problem with my computer, and I just got it fixed this morning, and I'm super ecstatic that I was able to do so. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please, because this video did take a considerable amount of time. I would appreciate it. But hey, that is my time. I did my thing. It's the third Sub-Zero. Question. No way.